Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a weekly political analysis show. It's been a crazy week last week. Before we go on, I will let you know I don't normally sound like this if you are a regular viewer of the show. I am a little stuffy this week. I'm coming down from a bit of a cold. I think the worst of it is beyond us. At least it was before Thanksgiving and not during Thanksgiving. So I'm going to run you through some of the things that happened this last week and then some other news that happened and then send you off for Thanksgiving. If you like the show, as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comments below. So I'd argue the biggest news of the week was not the passing of the bill to mandate the release of the Epstein files. That was probably what the media focused a lot of their attention on, and they did it for good reason. Instead, we're going to focus on the resignation of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. So let me read a brief excerpt from her statement, which I've linked below if you want to read more. It's a 4-page statement, quite long. Normally resignation statements are about 1 or 2 pages. This was quite long. So I'm going to read just from the end. She wrote, "You see, I have never valued power, titles, or attention in spite of all the wrong assumptions about me. I do not cling to those because they are meaningless and empty, traps that hold too many people in Washington. I believe in term limits and do not think Congress should be a lifelong career or assisted living facility. My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it made to the American people and put America first. And I have fought against Democrats' damaging policies like the Green New Deal, wide open and unsafe border policies, and the trans agenda on our children against women." Then she wrote, skipping ahead, "I have too much self-respect and dignity, love my family too much, and do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president we have all fought for, only to fight and win my election, while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me." It ends with, If I am cast aside by MAGA Inc. and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can't even relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. There is no plan to save the world or insane 4D chess game being played. When the common American people finally realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, not only one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country, and instead the reality is that the common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be there by their side to rebuild it. Until then, I am going back to the people I love, to live the fullest as I always have, and look forward to a new path ahead. I will be resigning from my office, with the last day being January 5th, 2026. So that is a big shock. Not something anybody predicted, and I'll run you through the events that led up to this and offer my thoughts and analysis as always. So, the 3 witches of the right-wing realm, as I like to call them, they face severe backlash for turning on Trump with regard to the Epstein files. I talked about this a little bit last week. Those people are Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and then the non-witch, I wouldn't call him a witch, is Thomas Massie of Kentucky. The most extreme is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who used to be the craziest, but has since moderated. For example, Trump has withdrawn his support for Marjorie Taylor Greene and suggested he would back a primary challenger to her. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if I was a Republican in her district and she was running again, I would have to support Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think I would have said that a year ago, but what she's done recently has been great, and I am greatly disappointed that she is resigning. Trump wrote on Truth Social last week, and he posted it after I recorded the episode last week, and I think it's pretty funny, and I'll read it to you and put it on screen in case you get lost. He wrote, "I am withholding my support and endorsement of quote-unquote Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia over the last few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world as opposed to being a laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting exclamation point, invested in the USA, and having created the quote-unquote hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more exclamation point. All I see is wackery Marjorie do is complain, 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 exclamation point. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12% and did not have a chance unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get, exclamation point. She has told many people that she's upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore, but with 219 congressmen and women, 53 senators, 24 cabinet members in almost 200 countries, and otherwise a normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primary Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they too are fed up with her and her antics. If the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View, with their very low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, exclamation point. Then Marjorie Taylor Greene extended an olive branch by saying, I think America needs to come together and end all of this toxic, dangerous rhetoric. So let's pause here. Are you kidding me? Orange, isn't this the same lady who said that Joe Biden needed to be impeached on January 21st, 2021, the day after he came into office? The articles are linked below. This is the same woman who said that Mitch McConnell was a socialist. Yes, Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate for 18 years, and he was the Senate Majority Leader for at least 10 of those 18 years. He is actually a socialist. She was railing against the socialist policies of Mitch McConnell, of which she couldn't name a single one. Before we go on with Boebert, Massey, and Mace, I will provide a few reasons for why I think Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned. Number one, to get a pension and health care for life. To get those things, you need to serve in federal office for at least 5 years. Her resignation date will allow her to get a pension, as AOC pointed out, so there is a financial reason. Then there's number two, which maybe she was blackmailed by the deep state or whatever. If you're more conspiratorial, maybe that's what you believe. I don't really believe this, but it is possible, and I thought I'd leave that on the table. Number three, she wants to run for a higher office, either in the state of Georgia or for president. Maybe not right away, but in the future. By getting the Epstein files released and resigning from Congress, anything that happens after she's gone is not her fault. She gets to wipe her hands clean. Perhaps she knows something we don't, or maybe it's a combination of two or three. Who knows? And if you have any other suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. So what does this mean? Well, she was a Trump loyalist, so it remains to be seen exactly what this means. In terms of the balance of power in Congress, it's not going to change too much because Governor-elect Cheryl resigned her House seat last week. So both parties are going to be down a seat, and a new Republican and Democrat will be elected later this year and early next year. Switching back to the files themselves, Trump said he wanted the files released, which doesn't really make a lot of sense considering he spent months trying to campaign against it. The administration can just release it themselves. They don't need Congress to do it for them. This vote on the bill last week, this was probably the second biggest news of the week. Some people would say it was the biggest. And this vote was to compel the administration to release them. If the administration wanted to release them, they could have done it back in January and February of this year. When a reporter from ABC asked the president this very question, he snapped and floated the idea of revoking ABC's license. Then we have Nancy Mace of South Carolina and Lauren Boebert of Colorado, who haven't gotten nearly as much fury as MTG, and they have not announced their resignations. But this would be a real risk to Nancy Mace and Boebert, because Nancy Mace is running a tight race to be South Carolina's next governor. And while the general election is not going to be tight, the primary will be, and she will likely need Trump's endorsement to win. Maybe she's done the calculus already and decided to go ahead with voting for it to release the files, or at least pushing every Republican voted to release it, by the way, but she was the one that helped get it over the finish line to get to a vote. Maybe she's decided that doing that is a good idea. Maybe not. Who knows? I think what is telling is that she was a rape victim herself, and of course that's sad and that's horrifying, but she's also a very performative politician. For example, back in May, she threatened to release her nudes for everyone to see, and she made a big deal about it. It was a multi-day news segment in the news cycle. And yes, this is a congresswoman, not your crazy neighbor. As for Lauren Boebert, the lady who didn't even graduate high school and became a grandmother in her 30s. So not only did she have a kid when she was 18, but her son had a kid when he was 16. So she's going to be a grandmother in her 30s, or she is a grandmother. And that should tell you a lot there. She will face a primary challenger, I imagine. I'm sure there is going to be one in her district in Colorado. She almost lost her seat in 2022, and she had to chicken run to a safer district. And I imagine Trump can try to throw his weight behind somebody else and maybe defeat her too. Because for a long time, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert were strong allies, and then they had a falling out. Just like Andrew Cuomo in New York City, there is very little reason to support Lauren Boebert. She is the definition of white trash. She got caught cheating on her husband. She groped her date and vice versa in a movie theater, which by the way, the picture of her on the thumbnail is her being kicked out. She said she didn't vote to raise the debt ceiling in 2023 and claimed it was a protest vote, and then footage came out of her running to get to the House floor to vote for it, and she actually just missed it. She also heckled Joe Biden in 2022, shouting, "Build the wall." She spread a lie about litter boxes in schools for transgender students, and then in June 2022 said she's, quote, "tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution," end quote. And then she suggested that Ilhan Omar is a terrorist, although she did apologize. She called January 6, 2021, 1776, and posted during the riot that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, had been removed from the chamber, seemingly helping the rioters by doing that, and saying this in 2020. Everything I've heard of Q, I hope this is real, because it only means America's getting stronger and better, and people are returning to conservative values, unquote. So what do we have here? We have a calculating woman in Marjorie Taylor Greene who is an anti-Semite. We have a white Christian nationalist conspiracy theory and a performer. So I'm not going to be celebrating them. They helped get this over the line, but Democrats, I am sure they were very unhappy to have to work with them. And while I thank them for getting this over the line, I'm not going to be supporting them. They're horrible people. Of the three, I probably have to support Marjorie Taylor Greene the most. She's probably better than who will replace her, but she's only good in comparison. There's Thomas Massie. He's the other Republican rebel. He has a personal issue with Trump. Trump's been trying to get Massie out of office since his first administration. He is one of the few principal Republicans, and what I mean by that is that Republicans are always against high deficits when Democrats are in office. He's always been against high deficits even when Republicans are in office. He's from Kentucky. He is the Rand Paul of the House, basically, so his rebellion is not a surprise, but it is welcome. So as I said, the bill passed nearly unanimously. It was 427-1 in the House and unanimous in the Senate. And it was signed by President Trump last week, which of course he took credit for. He said his party pushed the bill over the line, which was not true at all. However, there is one more wrinkle we haven't considered. And there's a wording in the law that allows Trump to not release the bill at all. Surprise! So what's that all about? Well, there is a loophole in the bill, shocking, and not really, but it is sadly expected. The loophole allows the administration to withhold documents if an investigation is underway, which Trump ordered 2 weeks ago. So the administration might selectively withhold documents, which could explain why they turned so quickly. They promised to release them within 30 days. The question is how and what. The administration seemed to claim it would release information on Democrats, and the strange thing is the administration also said they were investigating the Democrats' involvement in the Epstein files. So, for example, one Democrat, former President Bill Clinton, was in one of the emails. Jeffrey Epstein said Clinton was never on the island, and by the island we mean the island that Epstein and his associates committed his horrible, heinous crimes. And I'll give you my thoughts before we move on here. I think there is a lot of hype going on here, and I've definitely talked about this over the summer, and I think it's a good chance that this all turns out to be hot air. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean that this is all fake and that the crimes never happened. They definitely did. They obviously did, and we know that. What I mean that not one politician has been implicated in the crimes, and it has been over a decade, if not longer, since this has happened, and Jeffrey Epstein died the better part of a decade ago. What's unusual about this is the more people that you have involved in a secret, the less of a secret it is. It's totally possible, and I'll be the first to admit it, that there is a vast network of politicians and former politicians who know about Epstein. They know what he did and participated in it. But the fact is, the evidence for this has been and continues to be almost non-existent, which is quite strange. Yes, there's associations, but associations are just that. You associate with somebody, and that doesn't mean you're a part of it. Association does not prove illegal acts. What do I mean? For example, if my friend commits a horrible crime, and it turns out he is a sex offender. If it turns out he's a sex offender, then they look at me and say I run for office, and they say, "Oh, well, you knew who he was." Well, yeah, I knew who he was. Did I associate with him? Yeah, sure. That doesn't mean I actually did anything. And then, by the way, this is not, for those of you on the left, this is not me trying to get Trump off here. I'm just saying that's how it is. It's a fact. For example, President Bill Clinton. I never believed Bill Clinton was going to be implicated. And I may be totally wrong, but he is a former president of the United States. Former presidents have Secret Service control, and the location of Secret Service agents are subject to public review through the Freedom of Information Act. Meaning, if he was taken to the island, there would be records of that. Not just from Secret Service, but from multiple layers of government. It would require the Secret Service to stay quiet, flight logs to be falsified, pilots and crews to remain silent, and radar and flight tracking to leave zero evidence. There were people on his plane, for example, there were private planes, Jeffrey Epstein, but there still would have been Secret Service, and it makes it very unlikely Bill Clinton ever did anything. Maybe he did something here at home. We don't know, but there has never been any evidence. And in my opinion, absence of evidence is absolutely evidence, and there is no evidence. I'll also say that Epstein was a very wealthy man. He knew a lot of people. It's not a shock that these people knew Epstein. It doesn't mean they were all a part of it. So I believe that whatever crime network he may or may not have had, it was far smaller, less coordinated, less politically connected, and less networked than people imagine. Yet there is a Democrat who has been associated with Epstein. Remember, the left has said that Trump even associating with Epstein was bad and that he should be removed from office? Well, there is a woman named Stacey Plaskett. She is the delegate from the Virgin Islands. They are not a state. The Virgin Islands is not a state, so they don't have a representative. Instead, they have a non-voting delegate. She has all the powers of a representative, except she doesn't vote. And I won't get into it here, but she was texting Epstein during a congressional hearing back in 2019 while Michael Cohen was testifying. She claimed that she was just talking to a constituent, which is really gross because Epstein's island is in the Virgin Islands. But anyway, there was an effort to censor her, but that was defeated. Anyway, she was not complicit in any behavior. There's been no evidence of that. So let's move on. In other news, Tuesday last week, it was news broke that Texas would not be able to use its new congressional district map. You might wonder, all right, who cares about that? Except this is a big deal. Texas tried to redistrict to give Republicans 4 or so extra seats. You'll hear in the media 5, it's really 4 because one of those is a swing district, and that triggered California changing as well as a few states in Virginia, like Virginia. So Republicans, they started this. Then the ruling was suspended temporarily by Justice Samuel Alito, who is a Bush appointee. Governor Abbott in Texas has asked them to rule by December 1st, which would be next week. We will have to wait and see if that happens. That's just a week away from today. Say the map is struck down, which I imagine it won't be. Then what? Democrats will end up coming slightly ahead in redistricting, which is a nightmare scenario for Republicans in a year where they are likely to lose seats already. So why was the map struck down? Well, it is the Voting Rights Act. And I've talked about this before. I will definitely talk about it more in the future, which has impacts. That's a story for another time. Currently, the Voting Rights Act is before the Supreme Court, and one of the sections might be overturned or pared back. We won't know for the next few months. Since this is a case based on the Voting Rights Act, I would think that the court would uphold the ruling for now. But regardless, the Supreme Court will rule on this case, whether it will uphold the map or it will strike it down. As I said, I imagine the Supreme Court will soon make its ruling. Governor Abbott stated, this ruling clearly is erroneous. By the way, this is referring to the original ruling, the one that struck the map down in the first place. This ruling is clearly erroneous and undermines the authority the U.S. Constitution assigns to the Texas legislature by imposing a different map by judicial edict. Except he is wrong. If this violated the Voting Rights Act, there's no way around it. I do agree with him that the Voting Rights Act, the section in there, is discriminatory. It violates the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. You should not be required to make majority-minority districts, except the Voting Rights Act is in place. And for as long as it is in place, this map is illegal. And it was a 2-1 decision. One dissenter was a Reagan appointee, and the two in the majority opinion were an Obama and a Trump appointee. The timing is going to be a little tricky. The court is busy with a lot of other cases from the Trump administration, and Texas has a filing deadline of December 8th, which is the last day for candidates running for office in Texas to register for the primary in March. Hence the urgency for a decision made by December 1st. So that might have to be delayed, the filing deadline. So what does this potentially mean for 2026? Well, as I said, Democrats might come out on top. This wasn't necessarily likely a few weeks ago. That is, if the ruling is upheld, it was going to be +9 for Republicans and +6 for Democrats, with a net loss of Democrats of 3, excluding Virginia, which remains to be seen. But for now, it looks to be Democrat +2, and then you add Virginia. So there is a case in North Carolina and a potential position in Missouri that may delay the map for an extra year or two past the midterms. So Democrats need not fear redistricting losses so much anymore. That's been something I've been saying on the show for a couple of months. Republicans also have to be wary of something called dummy mandering, which is when, in the process of making one district safe, you make other ones more vulnerable. For example, if you have 6 safe Republican districts and 3 safe Democratic districts in a state, whatever state it is, and you try to make them 9 Republican districts, you might end up making 1 or 2 of them competitive, and then you actually end up losing a seat or 2. Republicans will have to be careful because in a non-wave year like 2022 or 2024, it might not be a big deal, but in 2026, a wave is absolutely expected. Basically, everything is going wrong. The only thing that is making Republicans maybe have a chance of holding on, and it's a slim one, is that we are not in a recession yet, although I believe we will be. We'll have to wait and see on that one. A lot of politics is wait and see, so that's where we are at the moment. So that is it for this little bit longer episode than usual. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you live in the States, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you next week in December. Have a good one. Bye-bye.